And we are recording.
Welcome, everybody. We'll now call to order the November 4th, 2021
Recording in progress.
Corcoran Planning Commission meeting. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Shulak is apparently out tonight for family-related issue. Commissioner Wu?
Here.
Commissioner Lannerman? Here. Commissioner Brummond?
Here.
And Commissioner Jacobs? Here. Okay, for those that would like, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thanks again. All right, tonight we have a new planning commissioner joining us. Her name is Corrine Brummond, and she was appointed last week at the city council meeting, and we are very glad to have you join us tonight. There were 6 applicants, and so we have high thoughts of you, and we look forward to your participation. I guess there is no oath to administer, so with that, if you'd like to just introduce yourself, say a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for, believing in me, I guess. But I just want to say that we are a family, my family and I, that take service as one of the things that can be most highly esteemed, so we don't take it lightly. I consider it an honor and a privilege to enter into this process where it is and serve the residents of Corcoran. And I hope to do so, I will try to do so wisely and full of integrity. And I'm looking forward to the challenges. Hopefully nothing is more challenging than raising 4 children, right? Can't be. But no, in all honesty, I'm grateful for this opportunity. And to all the other applicants that applied, I really, really hope that you guys continue to participate and engage in the process, because our community is better when everyone shows up.
Very good. Well, thank you, and welcome again. All right, item number 4, agenda approval. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or changes to tonight's agenda? All right, if there are none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
All right. All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved. All right, item 5 is open forum. Open forum is an opportunity for the public, either in person or online, to address the Corcoran Planning Commission on any topic they so desire that is not already on tonight's agenda. And tonight we have 3 public hearings for Bechtold Farms, St. Therese, and then a nonconformity zoning amendment. So if you have anything to address outside of that, please help yourself to the podium, state your name and address, and we'll go from there. And Natalie, are you running the board tonight? Offline?
I am running Zoom as well, but we should see if anyone in person wants to speak, and then I can go over the Zoom rules.
I believe everyone here is for the agenda items tonight.
For the agenda items.
Okay.
All right, so if you're joining us online and like to participate in the open forum, please use the raise your hand function under either the reactions tab, or sometimes mobile devices will have it under the participants tab, and we can recognize you. At this time, there's no hands being raised.
All right. It appears that no one wants to participate in open forum. We'll move on to item 6, the minutes from October 12th, which was a special meeting. Does anybody have any comments, corrections to the minutes from the 12th? I personally did not see any as I read over it, and of course, Corinne, you weren't
I wasn't there.
part of it. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second, Lanterman.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All right, the meat and potatoes of our meeting tonight. Item 7 is a public hearing under new business for application for Sky's Limit Bechtold Farms on a property located at 10165 Bechtold Road. And at this moment, we will entertain the staff report, please.
Perfect, so we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So here is the site location for this application. The northern parcel highlighted in blue is 10165 Bechtold Road. And it's also including the parcel immediately south, also highlighted in blue. But that one does not have an address at this time. Next slide. The preliminary plat will result in 12 single-family home lots, and they are also requesting a variance to allow a private driveway that would be placed in the unimproved right-of-way dedicated for Garden Lane. Next slide. Here is the image of the proposed plat. As a part of the plat, Chaparral Lane will be extended at this time. Garden Lane will be dedicated, but it will not be extended at this time if the variance is approved. Next slide. It's a 115-acre site, guided rural agriculture residential and zoned rural residential. The lots range from 5.6 to 21.5 acres. And there is an existing trail easement on 10165 Bechtold Road on the western portion of the site that is the result of a previous subdivision. New parkland would be, dedication would be required as a part of the preliminary plat in front of us tonight. The site includes wetlands, floodplain, and shoreland, including North Fork of Rush Creek in the northwest area of the site. The lots exceed the minimum lot standards required in our rural residential district. There are 2 overlay districts that also apply on portions of the site, the shoreland overlay and the wetland overlay. For the most part, these lots do comply with these additional standards, except for there are a handful of septic tank locations that will need to be revised to meet the 75-foot setback, either for the ordinary high water level or the wetland boundary. For park dedication, 3.55 net acres of park dedication is required. This site does show in our comprehensive plan a planned future off-road trail. Staff is proposing acquiring 3.15 gross acres of land, which includes the area west of Rush Creek to the western extent of the 100-year floodplain, in addition to a 20-foot trail easement past the floodplain in the northwest part of the site, and a trail easement to connect from Chaparral Lane to the existing trail easement. In total, the net acreage for the park dedication comes out to be 0.53 acres. The additional gross acreage would provide flexibility for trail placement to help deal with the constraints of the floodplain and the wetland in the area. The land accounts for 15% of the park land credit, so the remaining fee due is a little over $43,000 based on our current fee schedule. So that's an estimate at this time. So here is a visual of what I was just talking about. So basically the area with the pink polka dots in the northwest corner, and it runs a little along the west side as well, is the area from Rush Creek to the western extent of the 100-year floodplain. And then the yellow line is the proposed trail easement, 20-foot wide trail easement. And then there's an additional trail. The applicant was proposing the straight blue line right there. Yep, the applicant was proposing that to extend from Chaparral Lane to access the trail on the western portion of the site. That is a little unfeasible with the amount of times it would have to cross the creek. So staff is proposing it be adjusted, the blue stripes, so that we minimize the creek crossings as much as possible. Next slide. So as a part of the plat, Chaparral Lane will be extended and will provide access to 10 of the lots. The future extension of Garden Lane will be provided by dedication of road right-of-way. This will impact one lot, which will get current access from Chaparral Lane via driveway in the unimproved right-of-way. So Bechtold Road provides access to 2 of the lots. Lot 1, Block 1 is an existing residence, so that access is at this time proposed to remain, but there's been some mention of flexibility for that. And then Lot 2, Block 2 is to the south, and there's also a parcel like right in the middle of Lot 1, Block 1. And there's another parcel that's existing, and then there's Lot 2, Block 2. So that lot would also be on Bechtold Road, and the access would be as near as possible to the existing lot immediately adjacent to the north. The variance is to allow a lot without frontage on an unimproved public street. Staff recommends approval of the variance based on the findings that a 1,757-foot extension of Garden Lane simply is not warranted to serve a single lot, and there would be a negative impact to 9927 Garden Lane, which is immediately southwest. There is road easement dedicated there, but it would cut through that parcel and it'd be very close to the existing house. Lot 10, Block 1 will have direct access from Garden Lane once it is constructed, most likely when 9927 Garden Lane is further developed. So at this time, the Planning Commission should open the public hearing and take comments. And then staff is recommending to approve the draft resolution for the preliminary plat and variance for Bechtold Farms.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, at this point then, we will open the public hearing. Obviously, we have a number of people here. So the informal rules for the open hearing are, please address the podium, state your name and address, and to the extent possible, we'd like to try to limit it at 5 minutes, but take as much time as you need to express your opinion. So who would like to start? Nobody?
Well, I'll start us out. I am Paul Otto with Otto Associates. I'm the project engineer and surveyor on this project. So here to offer some insight, or if you have questions for me on the design and kind of what's going on. We have reviewed the staff report. We have 3 things in there that we would like to discuss at this time. One being if we could put up the park.
Well, Paul, we might want to, Mr. Chair, would you like to have the applicant be later after the public hearing is over, maybe?
We can do that.
Just in case there are questions.
It's up to you.
I think this is fine.
Okay.
I can come back later if there's questions that you feel like you want to answer too.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, if we could go to the park, there we go. So one of the things that we're looking at is that we are questioning is the 3.15 acres of additional parkland dedication. The area in the polka dots is in the floodplain. The yellow line is a 20-foot trail easement, which has been typically what the city has done. The last 2 rural projects that I was involved in Corcoran, that trail easement was located outside of a floodplain, and the additional land in the floodplain to the wetland or other water body was not taken at that time. So I guess I'm kind of questioning why it is being recommended in this time. It seems to be similar to that. I think one of the issues was some trees in there, but it's, it's going to be an 8-foot wide trail, and we have a 20-foot wide corridor, so we should be able to work around some of the trees in getting that through there. Kind of our issue is that, if you're living on one of these lots and you have that big area back there that's covered by an easement, it's really limited on what you can do in that easement. And then what are the city's future plans for that? I mean, is it just a trail, or is it some other bigger idea can go in there? I guess we don't really understand that. So We are asking this board and council to consider our original proposal and only take for the 20 feet that is outside of the floodplain and not take all the way to creek. This project, you guys don't know, we've worked heavily with staff. We've been in progress with staff for about 2 months. We originally had a design that Chaparral Lane didn't connect. It went straight out. It was a lot more standard, I would say, lot arrangement. But Public Works really wanted Chaparral Lane to connect where at the intersection for safety purposes. So that made us really kind of realign everything. And then Garden Lane, adding that into there and dedicating that property, that's about another 3 acres. So now we're at about 6 acres that my clients are giving on this project, if you go along with the staff's recommendation. We're okay with Garden Lane. We understand the need for the future. And not building it is good, because when it comes to be built, it'll be when the zoning ordinance changes, and that might be 20, 30 years from now. Who knows? So it'll be something smaller. Is that me? Stop touching stuff. So I guess we're asking for consideration on that. The other thing is that in the engineer staff report, and maybe this is more of a technical issue for the engineers, but they've asked to see a design for Chaparral Lane, and I guess I'm questioning that as well, because if we're talking 20 to 40 years down the road and it's a different density, that's probably a curb and gutter type street. We have a rural section, so a rural road, paved road with ditches. So to design Chaparral Lane now and also associated stormwater seems premature, because the rules will be different. You might have a different street section. Stormwater rules definitely will be different. They've changed in the last 10 years, so I see that also being something that to design for that hardcover now, and not knowing what that layout to the south is going to be. Maybe if we pull up the preliminary plat, that would help the planning commission understand that. So Garden Lane running in through here, if we start to look at designing ponds for this, I see when cities water comes here, these properties get cut up into smaller pieces when that time is right. We may design a pond now that isn't in the right spot, probably isn't the right size for what's going to be in the future. So I would ask for the Planning Commission to provide some comments to City Council about their feelings on that as well. We have no problem in designing for what we're building, but that future design seems to be premature at this point, and it would have to be revisited and redone later. And it seems to me like it's we're kind of spending money to do something now that's going to be just thrown away later. So those are really our 3 contentions with the staff report and things we wanted you to consider. I don't know if that all made sense to you or if you have questions on that, but.
It does, and you've kind of set it up, and certainly we'll address that at another time. But during the public hearing, we take down questions that maybe we can answer at a later time, but we'll probably certainly look for some of your input once we begin our discussion.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Is that rustling from Zoom?
No, everyone is muted except for me on Zoom. I don't know what's causing the interference. I apologize.
My name is Mike Savitsky. I'm a Corcoran resident for 45 years. My address is 10322 Hague Drive. And I don't really have an issue with the project as much as I'm here to maybe guide some drainage issues from Hague Drive area, which I'm glad this got left up. But I'm this guy right here, and right up here there's a 6-inch tile, a field tile that drains our neighborhood on Hague Drive, and that comes out right here. And in the spring, it literally gushes like 5 feet in the air. And there's a swale up here running the field down, draining through here. So I'm just here mostly to let you guys know that we've got a field tile, and then Mr. Meister from the, oops, I'm supposed to be here, right?
No, that's quite all right. We could all hear you, so.
So Mr. Meister, a couple of years ago, we worked on that field tile because it was plugged. We got it running again, but when this project happens, we got to keep in mind everybody upstream, which I'm sure you already do, draining downward, and we've got an issue with our neighborhood coming through a tile at this point. So when the developer's involved with this, they should have some kind of plan to deal with that 6-inch tile that's coming out by the fence line there. And that's pretty much the only thing I have to share. Otherwise, let's bring some new neighbors in. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Good evening. Stacy Maroshik, Jay Brown. We live at 22355 Oakdale Drive, which is the property just north.
It's this property here and this property here. It's 20 acres, extends out to Oakdale Drive.
Okay. While we respect our neighbors' right to do what they want with their property, we have a few concerns because we have worked with our property over the last 25 years that we've, almost 25 years that we've lived here to do a lot of wetland restoration, grassland restoration, riparian forest buffer all along the area adjacent to the property line. And I have a number of concerns about some of the placement of some of the proposed septic near wetlands that are on our property, as well as myself concerns about just the overall comprehensive plan for Corcoran and building new septic and perhaps new well and water as opposed to what I thought we were really focusing on as a city of bringing in from existing sewer and water from sort of the existing suburbs and on in. And this seems like it's a development being sort of put in the middle of a very rural area, which is why a lot of us chose to be in Corcoran, is to maintain that rural area. The area that I'm specifically concerned about is this lot 3 and the septic here, because we have a wetland that we've worked with the conservation department to reestablish. So it's essentially like right here on the other side of the fence from that. We also have 3 other existing wetlands that we worked with the Elm Creek Watershed District to prevent some of the farm runoff, and also the prairie grass restoration, again, to help the Elm Creek watershed, which the Rush Creek is part of. So I do have significant concerns about the health of that waterway as well when we start putting a lot more houses up against the creek.
I think our major concern is these septic system locations that are marked A and P there. There's wetlands on both sides, and there's wetlands right across our property line on that. And those shouldn't go there. The 25 years that we've been here, in many cases, we've seen this whole property up in here that belongs to us flooded with water for 3, 4, 5 days. And it hasn't happened in the last 7 or 8 years, but we have seen it happen. And so keeping, a septic system away from something like that, I think makes a lot of sense. And I'm not sure if it could be placed someplace else or not. Just to amplify on what Stacy said, we moved out here to be in a rural area, and to have a housing development going right next door is, we're not going to tell anybody what to do, but we're not real happy about the whole thing. And, if we can do what we can, what works with the developer to keep the housing and the septic systems as far away from our property line so we maintain a rural feel out there, that would be, very helpful for us.
And if anybody needs a copy of the program that we had gone through with conservation, it does have all of the native grass restoration, riparian forest buffer, windbreak, and wetland restorations that are on the property north that have been designated already. And I just feel like it's a little too close for us in that part.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you. Can I get your name again? I didn't.
My name's Jay Brown,
Browns.
and this
Okay.
is my wife Stacy Moroshek.
Okay. Okay, anybody else?
Take a copy of this.
Sure.
I mean, this is not my copy. I would need a copy of.
Well, did you get it from someone at the city?
No, this is from the Conservation District, but this is my copy, but if somebody wanted to make a copy of that, I'd be happy to share it. Or I could drop one off later.
You're more than welcome to submit it, but the packet's already been delivered to everybody. I don't know if it's something that the city wants to entertain for the city council.
We can note it, it's in the comments.
Yeah. Mr. Barenkamp.
Holy cow. Dean Barenkamp, 9310 Bechtold Road. Natalie, could you pull up the one that is showing in the outline of the park trail and those kind of things and the wetlands and such? Again, welcome, Corrine. That's used to be my chair. It is my chair now, but in a different role. I am one of the council members, so I want everybody to know who I am. Full disclosure, I'm also a neighbor. I'm down on Bechtold Road on the other side of 30. The wetland districts, those kind of things, Rush Creek Wetland, Elm Creek Parkway, or the Elm Creek Wetland or Watershed District and all of that stuff. A lot of these things are done and shown here as far as wetlands, and they are completely involved with everything that we're doing right now. Our neighbors up on Oakdale, thank you for everything you've done. I believe the developer is going to be very open and cordial for those kind of things. A lot of people are saying too close for development and those kind of things. I want to say this up front, and I'll say it at the council meeting too. The water and sewer coming here is going to be well beyond 2040. So the development on this, my feelings are these houses, these size acreages and those kind of things are probably better than, and I hate to say this, farmland with the water runoff and everything like that. So I'm excited to see this come. I'm very happy for Mary Bechtold to be able to do what she's doing with this. Thank you for the developer coming in. But I do ask the Planning Commission, I expect good, responsible input to us as a council, but I also expect the developer, the people that bought the land and stuff to be good stewards and good neighbors. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Natalie, do we have anybody online?
I will quickly add members of the public joining us on Zoom. If you would like to speak for the public hearing of Bechtold Farm, please raise your hand using the using the raise your hand function, either under the reactions tab or the participants tab.
Okay. You folks more than welcome to proceed.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for your time and here this evening. My name is Donovan DeMoray, and this is Philip Caprati. We are the new owners of the Bechtold Farms. I just wanted to say a few things and introduce and let you know with regard to the last speaker. Everything he had said is our utmost intention. We want to work with the neighbors. We understand that things that have been the way they've always been for long periods of time, when there's change is a tough thing. We get that, we respect that. We are working within the confines and the guided comprehensive land use plan that is allowed for this property, so we're not trying to squeeze crazy high density onto here. We know it's rural. I was born and raised rural on a 40-acre farm in Buffalo. Phil was raised rural, so we don't want to slam high density. And I know anything anything other than the 117 and change it is right now seems like high density to you, and I get that perspective. But we will continue to take all the comments tonight into consideration and be good stewards of the land, and want to create just a really nice community here. We've worked with the Bechtolds to keep the Bechtold Farms name and the name of the plat as a homage to them, and we intend to have this be a very positive thing. And again, while we respect that change is something that is hard. With regards to the neighbors to the north, totally respect everything that you've done there. You've gone above and beyond. Nothing we're planning to do from just a default would, in my opinion, jeopardize that. We professionally hired wetland delineator companies, Hague, who does this prominently in the area, to make sure that all those wetlands have been delineated, that the future septic sites, we can talk about it again, those are their alternative options that aren't quite as close to the property line. We don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize anyone's existing confines of their property. That's not why we're doing this. We don't want those future issues now or later, but we're open to discussing it all.
Are you open for questions here, or can you ask questions while you're up there?
No, so this is a public hearing, but I would suggest if you have questions, maybe, you can ask them later after the meeting. Yes.
Yeah, we'd be open to chat with anybody after the meeting.
Yes.
Open Sky? Your Open Sky, that's the company's?
We are the developer, yep, down there, I'm the developer. So I'm Phil Quadrant. I will be the builder on these properties as well. So we build custom homes, and it's, again, like Donovan mentioned, we don't want drainage issues. We're gonna take all that into consideration. And the septic site's located on the property that can be moved. We have to show that the lot is buildable. But in regards to lot 3, absolutely we can move those septic sites. There's, I think it's a 75-foot setback, so let's, we can certainly have a discussion about that. But otherwise, I think Paul Otto mentioned our 3 areas of concern. If you can take those into consideration, specifically, from the sounds of it tonight, that trail easement, keeping it at the 20 feet, instead of everything in the floodplain down to the creek. We feel that we have a very nice lot, wooded lot in a cul-de-sac, and to have a good portion of an easement right through the middle of the property, it'll severely impact the property. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anybody else in attendance that would like to speak?
I'm Diane Nelson. I live at 10206 Bechtold Road, directly across from the homestead. I guess my neighbors and I are wondering how this is going to impact our taxes. And how is Bechtold going to be paved, and how is that going to impact our property? That's my questions.
Okay, and afterwards, we'll have Brad and Natalie will try to address that concern before we move on to discussion, so. Okay, anybody else? Anybody online?
No one is raising their hand online, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, if that's all that want to speak in the open hearing, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Woman.
All right, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the public hearing is now closed. Okay, commission discussion and recommendation. Well, let me give you folks a chance to answer some of the questions that were posed.
Mr. Chair, Planning Commission, so as Mr. Cothrati stated, Lot 3 is one of the identified lots that simply we're going to be moving out of the 75-foot wetland setback, and it was included as a condition of approval. And there was also discussion of a few engineering items. I did get a response back for them today. It does not sound like we are looking for the design as they noted in their memo. There is some additional information, and I will forward that to the applicant so that I think that will be resolved to their satisfaction. So we'll continue to work with them on those two items.
Is that the design of the road?
Yeah, for Garden Lane, I'm sorry. for Garden
Okay.
Lane. So we do have a response from Public Works and Engineering on that. And again, basically, they are now at this time asking for the proposed impervious surface used in the model assumed. And identification of the EOF across future Garden Lane is not necessary, but the EOF of the wetland complex is noted and the comments should be shown. So I think that we can work with.
That makes sense.
Okay, sounds good. I'm glad it makes sense to you. So I think that part is resolved, and and then as far as Bechtold Road, at this time, we are not proposing that to be paved as a result of this project, is my understanding. And as far as taxes, I don't know if you have more of an assessment on that, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, the developer has to pay for any and all improvements to make this development work. So essentially, it's adding tax base to the city. The same amount of maintenance will happen on Bechtold Road with or without these homes, for example. They have to pay their way as far as park dedication, everything else, but these homes will be subject to the same tax rate as everybody. And ideally, the higher the tax base, the tax rate potentially could go down for other people, depending on the service level the council wants to have. So the policy of the council has been for new development to pay its own way, so existing taxpayers are not impacted that way.
Okay.
And then just for chair and members regarding the park dedication comment that was brought up. Really, this was at the staff review. Parks and Trails Commission reviewed and recommended dedication of the yellow trail. This is a future off-road trail that would be through Corcoran. So nothing exists right now. Back when this originally came in, this existing trail easement was taken. But due to the location of the crossings and the wetland area, that have a much better look this time around. So it was the upland area and the recommendation for additional taking the remainder. That's a request that we can certainly forward on to the council, but that's the recommendation going to the council. I guess if you wanted to, you could waive in. It's more of a Parks and Trails type comment. Well, typically, actually, our ordinance says we do not give credit for floodplain for park dedication. So it's really whether or not it's really needed, and then if so, if the council wants to walk away from that position. I think that was the rest of them.
I think so.
Okay. If your question was not answered, I would suggest forwarding that on to Brad or to Natalie, and they'll be glad to address that at the earliest convenience. So, in the spirit of moving on then, we will now have commission discussion and recommendations. So, if you don't mind, I'll start off. And this would be a question for the applicant. In the narrative, there was a comment made about an HOA. And I'd like to know a little bit more about your HOA and what is, I think you had some covenants. I'd be interested in knowing what those are. I mean, when we hear HOA nowadays, we're talking about, having your lawn mowed and your driveways cleared. And so I'm a little unclear what a HOA would do for a rural subdivision. Would you like to answer that?
I can.
Sure.
So, Philip Coltrane, I'm the applicant. As far as HOA, we don't have it in place yet, but our thought is we just want to set some guidelines, minimum standards for the property, but at the same time, we want to leave it, I'll say flexible, you know, we're not going to have, you know, anything in there as far as mowing the yard every week or every X amount of days, but we want to set minimum standards as far as architectural control, make sure that all the homes complement each other. You know, we'll set some square footage standards, main floor on the two-story, you know, maybe it's 1,300 square feet, you know, with X amount above grade, and the same thing on the Rambler. You know, we'll set some sidings, exterior standards, you know, as far as colors, products to be used, and as well as, you know, landscaping, you know, landscaping plan. You know, but like I say, at the same time, we understand it's rural living, that, you know, we don't want to be too firm with it, you know. Like I say, basically minimum performance standards.
Now, one of the covenants that I've seen on acreage lots, of course, we don't get a lot of these types of developments all that much anymore, but they'll put in a covenant where there's no accessory buildings. Are you thinking of having a covenant where nobody would be allowed to build an accessory detached structure in this neighborhood?
I guess we haven't spoken about it. I think our vision on some of these larger lots, you know, I mean, yes, it is, you know, let's call it a neighborhood setting, but, you know, some of these lots, I mean, there's one lot that's 21 acres. It's, you know, they're large lots. You know, I think our smallest lot was it 5.1 acres?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, personally, I do picture maybe some accessory buildings. You know, we experience or we see inquiries for any equestrians setups, or, you know, but all of that needs to fall within city standards as well. You know, X amount per acre, you know, same thing, square footage on the accessory building. And if there is, I think we would set it that the exterior needs to match the house.
Okay.
What about protection of the trees that have been preserved? Is there going to be anything in the HOA or a covenant restricting owners from chopping down those trees on their site? They're going to buy the site, but yet you've preserved trees. How do we know they're not going to move in and chop them all down?
I believe there's tree preservation on lot 7, correct? Is that the shaded area here?
Yep.
I can help with that. Yeah, the shaded area on the south and the shaded area on the north we're using to meet our stormwater requirements for volume retention. Those will be placed in the conservation easement, so they will be in an old touch zone other than the invasive species old dead. So that will be handled through the watershed district. That will be a requirement that then, I don't know if the city will want to be a party to that, but there will be easements over those areas.
But how will the owners know that?
It'll be part of their abstract. Okay. It'll be recorded against the property.
Okay, but now, because this was going to be part of my question, so specific to Lot 7, you've got a rectangular tree preservation, but approximately about 3¼ acres actually are wooded on the southwest corner of that. Now, is the intention then that you're going to cut down everything else?
No.
No, not, so the development, no. With the development of the property, no. The shaded areas would be a protected zone. Those property owners would not be able to cut trees in there. Outside of that, they would have to meet city ordinance on whatever trees they took down, but they would be allowed to clear cut some of that as long as it falls into the city requirements.
Yeah, and, well, as far as I know, and we've been wrestling with the issue for a long time, there's no prohibition from people cutting down trees on their land. And so, I guess when I looked at it, though, and I was looking at the aerials and stuff, I was just like, does this mean they're going to cut everything down but that? And
No, I'm sorry. That's not our intention. We are cutting, there's a row of trees kind of through the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Along a field road. The back half of those will go because our road's almost right on top of it, so those will go. Everything else is going to stay on the property as it is with the development. So then it's going to be the individual property owners, and I guess my experience is that they might cut an area out to put their shed or their house, but I would think that those trees would be an amenity, at least I would hope so, but we can't control that, I guess, but.
Yeah.
That was one of the, I'll say, huge appeals, attraction to this property as, as the developer, that it is wooded and, that we definitely want to preserve that.
Okay, great, thanks, guys. All right, so I kind of want to dig into this issue of the trail. All right, so the red line on the south and on the west, that is what was put into place years ago, correct?
Correct.
And is it the intention that those are going to remain as trail easements?
Mr. Chair, yes, those are done. Those are set in stone. So at this time, we're just looking to add to it for the off-road trail to make that feasible.
Okay, so the applicant proposed the purple line moving right along the property line between 6 and 7. And this blue and white dotted denotes staff-adjusted proposed trail easement. Is that being proposed? What did the Parks and Trails say about that?
They agreed with that recommendation. So as Natalie talked about, back when this was initially taken, there wasn't much modeling or looking into where a potential crossing could be. Just take it on the property line. And if you were to come down this way, you'd have to have several boardwalks or small bridges to cross a couple of times. Whereas if you came at this location, you could jump on without having the need for additional bridges essentially across. So, it's some future Star Trek year problem, but we're trying to do the best we can now to avoid that in the future.
Okay, so this proposed trail easement is that, you guys could just give me a nod, is that something you have agreed with staff on that?
The shaded area from
The
stripy one.
The striped one, yeah. Okay, all right. Now, I'm curious then, so the dotted area, floodplain area west of Rush Creek to be acquired for parkland dedication. So it looks like that is going to be area that the city is going to acquire. Is there going to be compensation for that through that process?
Mr. Chair, right now, we are not, typically, we don't include floodplain as part of the park dedication credit. Whether or not we want to recommend something different to city council, really was a question for Parks and Trails Commission, but for whatever reason, it really didn't get addressed in that meeting, so it's really up to city council. But typically, we don't. But that is floodplain, that is not buildable area. So.
Okay, but if I'm the guy who's going to buy Lot 6, here's my question. Do I have a right to that area? Or is that going to be owned by the city?
My understanding is they would still have right to access it because it's public parkland, basically, but,
Well, if it's dedicated.
yeah.
So
Okay.
It's land for dedication, so as proposed, it'd be dedicated to the city.
Okay, so then you have the yellow line as the trail. That would be within city land. What about everything on the other side of the trail then, this wooded section that's in gray up in the northwest corner? Who owns that? Does the lot owner Lot 6 owner own it, or does the city own it?
Mr. Chair, it would be the lot owner's property. We are not asking for the upland area, and then that would be, from what Paul Otto said, it sounds like that will be in a conservation area as well.
Okay, but
I think it would.
I mean, we all love the idea that people will dedicate land to conservation, but if I look at this, and the way I kind of thought I understood it is then, so I got a house, and then I got a floodplain that I can't build in, and then I've got land that I gave to the city for nothing, and then I got a trail easement, and then I got a patch of woods on the other side that I couldn't even put a trail to if I wanted to go up there and cut wood, but I own it. I mean, that just doesn't sound kind of right on that basis. So I mean, I kind of understand what the applicant's talking about here, and that you've got this big swath. I mean, there's nothing they can do about, you know, the 100-year floodplain. But, you know, if the city council is going to determine whether or not the city gets to acquire the polka dot area, and that comes without any kind of recommendation from the Parks, Trails, and, you know, Parks and Trails Commission, how did it make it to this point tonight?
So this is at the staff level. So again, it goes back to, this is a future significant off-road trail corridor for the city. And there is the opportunity in the way that the comprehensive plan it's written is regarding following the creek as much as possible. And I think ideally taking a little extra land could allow for a better experience in the future. Maybe it doesn't have to be so far away. Maybe there's a boardwalk that kind of can encroach into that floodplain area. It's really an opportunity to maybe have an enhanced, better version of a trail in the future. But this area has been planned well before this application coming in for this being an off-road trail amenity for the greater community.
But the trail and the greater community can suffice with just the yellow trail as proposed without having to take the polka dot area.
Probably.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the maps do not show the OHWL mark. And so in that, we really can't determine some of the primary and alternate septic sites, whether or not they comply. Is that a condition? I saw that they have to put that in the map, but how likely is that going to affect, say, specifically Lot 6, even possibly Lot 5? Lot 3, it looks like there's plenty of movement there. Lot 4, looks like there's plenty of room to maybe move the septic there, but is there anticipation that there's going to be any point when, I mean, what's usually greater, the 100-year mark or the overall high water level?
So the Shoreland Overlay District, it's based on the ordinary high water level for the setbacks of the septic systems. And the analysis at this point is that really would only impact the septic location on Lot 6, Block 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's not anticipated, and keep in mind, not every lot is in the Shoreland Overlay District. It follows the creek.
Mm-hmm.
So it's at this time only anticipated to impact that location for Lot 6. As far as the remaining lots that would need to be reviewed for compliance are the ones that are next to a delineated wetland. So that's Lot 3, Block 1, Lot 5, Block 1, and Lot 8, Block 1. So so that has nothing to do with the ordinary high water level.
Okay, all right. So the overlay district is only going to affect then Lot 6 and Lot 5?
I believe so.
Okay. And I assume Chaparral Lane will be paved? Chaparral Lane is paved? Okay. So I'm a little then unsure of what is being proposed then for Garden Lane to Lot 10. Is that going to be asphalt, or is it going to be pavement as well? I think I read that it might be paved, but I don't think it's required.
Yeah,
I did not see in the
you
staff
have that
report that it's required to be
design
paved.
detail. I just have that it's going to be a driveway in the unimproved area for the Garden Lane easement road.
Okay,
easement.
so to you, Philip, if are the driveways as part of your development and the HOA, are driveways going to be required for, or I should say asphalt or bituminous or concrete driveway is going to be required? Or are you going to allow gravel, Class 5?
Our intention is to have hard surface, or
Okay, so when the comment then is made that the drive down Garden Lane for Lot 10 is going to look just like any other driveway, I assume then you're going to require that to be paved as well?
yes, sir.
Okay.
As a driveway.
As a driveway?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Same standards as the rest of them.
Okay. And then, that at this point is all I had. So, Commissioner Lanterman, would you like to go next, please?
Yeah, I just have a question or two for staff. Natalie, in staff's report, in, let's see, item 4A, under your analysis, I guess my question is, does this application, does this plat meet the standards outlined in the city's subdivision and zoning ordinance?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lanterman, ultimately, yes, this does meet our standards with a few small conditions for approval. Yes.
Okay, so then if I understand your report as well, it reads, if it meets these standards, the city must approve the preliminary plat. Is that correct?
You are understanding that correctly. Really, the biggest question is the variance.
Okay, so if I don't like this plat at all, I have to vote to approve it?
Correct. Based on the standards, they meet all minimum lot requirements for the subdivision, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner? Nope. Okay. Commissioner Wu?
Yeah, as far as informing the future purchasers of the land, I just want to make sure they know about the height restriction in the shoreline overlay, that it's 25 foot. Is that going to be disclosed? How will that be? This is a question for the developer. How will that be disclosed to the owner, the future owners of purchasers?
25 feet.
Height restriction in the shoreline overlay district. So it affects which lots, is it?
Lots.
5 and 6, right?
5 and 6. So, and that applies to any building, is that correct? So, house, barn, pole building, anything?
Correct, Commissioner Wu, yes.
So my question to you is, how will that be conveyed to the future buyers?
We'd have to write that into the contracts.
Can you make sure that's in there? You'd be surprised how we've gotten people saying they just didn't know certain things applied to their land, and then we're trying to solve it.
Now, to be fair, we did just grant a variance, all right, to the development on 10. They were in the shoreland overlay district, and they've got a 45-foot tall building they're putting up in there. So to the extent that you as a builder are designing a home for somebody who wants a 30-foot, there is a means to that end, but it'll require a variance for that.
And each case is unique.
Yep.
So there's no guarantee. I don't think I have any other questions. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Brummond?
Just in full disclosure, I live on Bechtold, so south of here, but it doesn't directly pertain to me, but that's something that should be out there. And aside from all of the great questions that you guys asked specifically, I don't have any questions. My only comment is this, that I am excited to see the opportunity for people to own a parcel of land. I think there's a resurgence of interest in that area, and I hope that the HOA that you are discussing creating would allow people to do things besides just own a nice piece of land, but to utilize that to do some of the things that are involved in rural living. That's my only comment.
Okay, very good. Any other further comments or discussion? Okay. As a comment to the owners who spoke earlier, I can certainly appreciate where you're coming from. I myself have a 5-acre site, and it was a 60-acre plot of land, farmland. Then it was put into 6 different lots with about 28 acres as an outlot that has no more building rights to it. And but it's subdivisions like this. I've lived here, built my house 26 years ago. Without subdivisions like this, people like me would never, get an opportunity to generally live out here unless we bought something like an existing farmstead. And as someone who is now close to the Musa line, I'm trying to think of ways to guarantee that maybe we don't lose our future view to a mass, sewer and water provided subdivision. And I come to one conclusion, that I wish I could put something like this in my backyard to keep it low density. Because once you get inside that Musa line, I don't see a way really to preserve a rural character. I don't want to tell you this is your best option, but I can certainly sympathize with you, but I am also excited for the opportunity that we're getting another subdivision, because I believe that the only way to keep the rural character of Corcoran is to slowly develop Corcoran. There will be plenty of decades left for farmland and whatnot. We all love that, but I think this is a good development, and I'm fully supportive of it. So, any other comments or discussion before we take a vote? All right, has everybody had a chance to look at the resolutions? And I don't believe that there were any recommendations that we would make to the city council that would be outside of what was drafted by the staff report. And I believe we only have one resolution. Is that correct? All right, do I have a motion on the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat and variance for Bechtold Farms.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, recommendation is to approve. All right, thank you, everybody. All right. We'll give everybody a minute to clear up.
See you later. We got a big one here coming up, so.
Oh,
Yeah, thank
sure.
you. I can send it to you. Do you want to put my card out there? If you want to email me, I can send you it. We got a couple more items here I can help with.
You know what? I made a big mistake. I wanted to say, you think they should take that land as park dedication.
You can write another resolution.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair, I'll note it in the minutes that that was discussed.
You know, Natalie, it just looks bad. Just,
Fair enough.
it doesn't seem right, it doesn't look right. And then to really top it off, it's just insulting them that they don't get credit for anything.
Yeah.
You know, the city doesn't buy it, they don't get parkland credit, but yet the city takes it for a park.
How come
That's
the
just
Parks
wrong.
and Trails didn't discuss it, do you know?
I wasn't at that meeting. I think there was a lot of focus on the 20-foot trail easement, and they just simply overlooked the staff recommendation to include that area. Part of the discussion was supposed to be whether we should give them some compensation for it, but at this point, we just have to bring it to city council.
You know, and I know this stuff is it's been in the comp plan for probably 25, 30 years, but this is kind of where the rubber hits the road. It's when we actually pass out the land, and you end up with the property owner unable to access land at the back. And it just, I wouldn't like it, you know.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think that, there wouldn't be like anything preventing them from accessing that land, and it's in the floodplain, so they wouldn't be able to build on that portion of the land either. But I understand what you're saying, and I will make sure that it's noted in the minutes. And I'll note it in the staff report for.
Basically, when you pointed that out, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm really blown.
And just a note about trees, we live on 15 acres, and I tried to call, because we have a huge amount of trees, and we're at the point where it's an unhealthy forest. We'll have one tree fall down, and it'll take down 5 healthy trees with it. So I tried to call the Wright County Soil and Water Conservation, and they were like, oh, no, you have to call the Minnesota DNR Forestry. So I called Minnesota DNR Forestry, and they don't do anything unless you own 20 acres or more of woods that can be managed under a plan by the state. So all that to say, like, when we talk about individual landowners trying to care for trees, there's really no state project. So it's just individually, they're doing it on their own, or they're not doing it and we're following. I'm quickly trying to become a study in forestry. And it's not my degree, but I'll add that hat.
Just so you all know, we do have hot mics.
Oh, sorry.
So, just want to put you all. Okay, what happened to Brad? Can we move on?
Yep.
All right. At this point, then, we're going to move on to item 7B. And this would be a public hearing for a site plan conditional use permit preliminary plat for St. Therese Communities on the property located at 8200 County Road 116. And at this point, we will entertain the staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So here is a picture of the site that we should all be somewhat familiar with. City Hall sits on the northern end, and the application in front of us tonight would allow for St. Therese to be built basically in the southwest portion of the site. So the site plan proposed tonight is for approval of a 206-unit senior living community with several accessory uses. A conditional use permit is required for the assisted living component as well as the skilled nursing facility. Also, as part of the application, there is a preliminary plat to create 3 lots, one for St. Therese, one for City Hall, and then an outlot for a planned lineal park. Currently, this property is guided mixed use and zoned downtown mixed use. It is located in the town center within our southeast district. On November 23rd of last year, the council had approved a minor subdivision of the same layout, but the minor subdivision was never recorded properly. So at this time, the applicant is just moving forward with a preliminary plan. So here's our zoning map. The red arrow attempts to indicate where the parcel is. It's basically that blue and pink area. That is all one parcel. Next slide. And this is our southeast district concept plan. Basically shows this area for St. Therese for medium residential use. The complex includes 99 independent living units, 53 assisted living units, 20 of which are dedicated for memory care, 54 skilled nursing rooms, The accessory uses on this site include a chapel, fitness center, salon, bistro, among some other uses. Many of these features will be open to the public, including an amphitheater in the southeast portion of their site. The town center standards within the Southeast District Plan do apply, and they have a higher standard than the other areas of the city, even within the Southeast District. So here is a picture of the concept plan, I'm sorry, the site plan for St. Therese in their complex. Next slide. So the Southeast District Plan calls for a build-to or maximum setback on the street. This is intended to create a strong street edge within our town center. A consistent edge should be provided through the primary building, low masonry walls, fences, and landscaping, or some combination thereof. Right now, the portion of the building identified as Building F in their site plan, the amphitheater, benches, and other landscaping are proposed to provide this edge. Overall, this concept seems to be, meets the intent, but additional details will be required as this moves forward. And the edge requirements should be a discussion point tonight for the Planning Commission. So the town standards require an architectural material mix that has a primary material of brick, stone, ephes, stucco, precast, or glass, with the idea that being at least 60% of the building. Secondary materials are allowed, but no more than 30% could be, and these could be things like fiber cement siding. The proposed plans submitted by the applicant do not really indicate the percentage. It does seem to imply several fiber cement siding panels. And it looks to exceed that 30% rule. However, it is worth noting that the design standards say may instead of shall. So it will be a discussion for the Planning Commission as to whether the intent has been met. Either way, the applicant will need to provide further details to show the primary and secondary percentages. So the amphitheater on the southeast portion of the site provides street edge at the corner. Further details will be required as this moves forward. And it's intended to be a public space to kind of pull the public in. There is no maximum building height in our town center, and the complex has a mix of 2 to 4 stories, with the lower stories being near County Road 116. We want to know that rooftop and ground mechanical equipment must be screened, and we will need additional details from the applicant as we move forward. Trash and recycling are proposed to be in the building to meet that requirement within the district. Right now, there's no signage shown for St. Therese. They will need to submit a sign permit, or submit for a sign permit, and the signage will need to comply with our current code standards. The Southeast District Plan shows gateway signs at both County Road 116 and City Center, and County Road 116 and 79th Place. And we've just made a note that the developer will need to work with the city as to how we reach a design on these signs. The ordinance requires 259 trees and 535 shrubs. I do believe this was also indicated as a discussion point in our planning staff report. Right now, they're showing 72 trees and 216 shrubs. Additional landscaping will need to be, or will be required for screening the parking areas and providing parking islands. And so the plans will need to be revised to show compliance as a condition of approval. There is a community garden planned in the northwest corner of the lot. Additional details also need to be provided for this aspect of the site, including a connection from the complex itself to the community garden. The ordinance requires 204 parking stalls. 163 are currently provided in the site plan. So the plans will need to be revised to show compliance with our standard, while there will be on-street parking available that will not count towards the minimum required on site. The plans also show bicycle parking as required for this district. The City Center Drive and 79th Place will be designed and built in partnership with the city. This will also include Hennepin County approval for turn lanes, street trees, and decorative lighting as well. Sanitary sewer and water will be extended by the developer, and the site must comply with public safety comments noted. Most of it was really building code requirements, but there was some concerns with turnarounds. Outlot A will be retained by city for the lineal park that is planned in our Southeast District Plan. It's shown here in the with the green long line kind of over to the far right of the screen. Yep, right there. Park dedication will be cash in lieu of land. The independent senior apartments are permitted use in our DMU district. It's just the assisted living and skilled nursing that require conditional use. Ultimately, staff finds that the standards of the CUP have been met. The preliminary plat will create 2 lots and 1 outlot. Lot 1 will be just under 13 acres for St. Therese. The second lot is for City Hall and will retain about 58 acres just under. And Outlot A is for the lineal park, making up about 3.69 acres, with right-of-way dedicated for city streets and County Road 116. Here is an image of the plat itself for Town Center Edition. And the development is the type of development the city has envisioned for the town center. The developer will partner with the city to finalize infrastructure design, and staff has included conditions to address the outstanding issues. At this time, the Planning Commission should open the public hearing and take comments, and staff recommends approval of 2 resolutions, one for the preliminary plat and the other approving the site plan and CUP for St. Therese Communities.
Great, thank you, Natalie. All right, at this point, we'll open up for the public hearing. Is there anybody in our audience that would like to speak on this topic?
My name is Henry Holgren. I live at 8001 County Road 116. And looking at the plans here, I don't see clearly where the main entrance is, where the traffic flow will be. The reason to bring that up is because it's bad enough living across the street from City Hall with the traffic that there is on 116 to know how the traffic is going to be directed for this development, especially for the people visiting and coming in and that. So my main question relates to the traffic issue.
Okay, and maybe, hopefully, someone on staff can address that, or maybe it'll get answered as we discuss this. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dan Carlson. I live at 8045 County 116. I leave my house about 40 seconds before I need to be here, so it's real close. I have development going on as long as Henry's well to the west of us, so we've just endured a full summer of sun up to sundown, Saturday all day, and Sunday as well, of noise, beeping, all that stuff. So to hear another development going across the street, I understand it's inevitable. If you don't own the property, you can't give people, can't deny their right to use that. But a couple things, in my other job, or my real job, I work in where we have commercial property directly adjacent to residential property. So a couple of my concerns would be in the design of the building for garbage pickup, at least in Plymouth where I work. Garbage pickup for resident or for commercial can be 24 hours a day. So they can pick up 2, 3 in the morning, and that's beeping and clanging of the trucks. And then rooftop air handler units. I'm gonna live right across the street. I mean, it's literally gonna be out my front windows. So you can question about what they do for design for, I guess we call it greenscape or something, or some kind of shielding for those properties. More for noise than anything. Noise and that light spill. So inevitably there's a light spill from there. Traffic, as Henry said, is gonna be an issue. It's hard to get in and out of there. I purposely shift my hours so I can get in and get out. I haven't been hit yet. I've been here 10 years. I haven't been hit yet, but there's black skid marks behind my truck on some of the places where people have slammed on the brakes to avoid hitting me. One car went down in the ditch in the summer and had to be towed out, and others just go right around me, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is there anybody online, Natalie?
Members of the public who would like to participate in the public hearing for St. Therese Communities, please use the raise your hand function that can be found either in the Reactions tab or the Participants tab. At this time, no one's raising their hand, Mr. Chair.
Okay, last call. All right, appears that no one else wishes to speak on the topic. So at this point, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second that one.
All right, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the public hearing is now closed. And we will move on to commission discussion and recommendation. Commissioner Wu, would you like to start off?
Yeah, so I'll address some of the topics. And on the exterior materials, I think that the applicant should follow the guidelines for primary and secondary materials. I think that we crafted those guidelines to preserve the character of the city center area. I feel that in a lot of other cities, there's clear definition between primary and secondary materials, and fiber cement lap siding or panel fiber cement siding, it's pretty much always secondary. However, it's expensive. Everything's expensive right now. So, at a minimum, if that is, I'm going to say this because there's no hard and fast rules and we want to work with people. So at a minimum, I would suggest that they provide 60% of the primary materials on the public street side face, and then can maybe exceed that amount of the secondary materials on the interior face of the buildings, of which there's a lot, and that's a way to save money. And that might be something that could be workable. I'll leave that up to City Council. But that could be one recommendation to do that. However, I wouldn't want to, personally, based on the recommendations, wouldn't want to see all 5%. So that's what I have for that. On the tree calculation, I believe that your IL is your R occupancy, your independent living is your residential occupancy per the building code, so you should do the calculation on the trees for that. And then the AL and the MC, the assisted living and the memory care, are institutional, so that's more of a commercial occupancy based on the way we do our tree count, so they should follow that to be consistent would be my recommendation. So I think that actually falls into the greater amount of trees, if I understood the slide from you correctly. I do have a question about where the additional 41 parking spaces would go. Would they be along that interior drive? Is that the only place where there's really room to add the additional parking spaces? I counted 41 when I did it.
Right. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Wu, side note, could you move your mic a little closer to you? I think it's kind of bent out. But I think that was actually addressed in Kendra's staff report here. I thought she was saying on the northwest, or on the northern portion of the site, they could fit that.
The northern portion of the site, the grade drops off.
Oh, okay, yep, nope, sorry.
So I don't think they can work there. I'm not seeking to design the parking, I'm just wondering where it's going, because that leads to my next question is that we have that outlot that's going to be the kind of that strip park that goes along 116, and if they are going to put, just because there's no other locations to put the parking, if they are going to put it on that ring road, is it the city's intent to develop that portion of that outlot and give it that park-like feel, which we're going to be shooting for, and which, you know, the applicants are going to be developing it, so shouldn't they also get that park-like feel between their property and County Road 116? And that's a question, I don't expect an answer, I just don't know what the intent is. Or are we going to make the applicant wait 20 years for whatever that amount of time is, before they get that area nicely done, you know? And it's going to be a place where we've got residents coming in, they might want to walk their dog, or the trail, or, it's rather than just a strip that gets mowed twice a summer or something,
It's, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Wu, to that end, we haven't really defined when that would be constructed and designed linear park. We've talked as much as possible, grading it. Maybe if we have extra dirt, it's a place to create, some different, small hills to make it more enjoyable. So we've talked about, I know from St. Therese, they would love us to design it the second they move in for their residents.
Sure, why not, right?
But it really is going to come down to, the money and where it comes from with our park dedication fund. Obviously, we have a lot coming in with Tavera and Rush Creek Reserve and others, but I think this is, in the past, has been a really high priority for the council to focus on this area, so.
Yeah, it'd be just nice if, it might be the place to start. I mean, someone's moved in.
Yep.
Commissioner Wu, just to go back to the parking, Kendra noted that there is adequate space on the west side of the site to provide the additional 41 stalls. So I apologize, I said north, but it is the west side of the site that she's saying it could fit.
Correct, and so that's why I was thinking that I didn't realize she was on the.
Oh, no, I'm just reading through her staff report. She was nice and prepared it for me.
Okay, so then that's another reason why I was thinking that Outlook Park would get some development, because they're going to be parking there.
Yeah.
And I guess by the time you bump up the landscape, you would screen the lights, but it would also be nice to have the park there. The other comment I have is about pushing the buildings closer to 79th as directed by staff. I'm in agreement with that. What we talked about in the staff letter, it talks about pushing those closer to 79th to be consistent with the design standards for this district. And that is the future independent living and future independent living buildings that are going to join onto Building G, these ones. I think she mentioned pushing those down closer to the street to meet that streetscape requirement. And then the only other comment I have is about Main Street, the Main Street that is being created by buildings G, E, and F. I'm just curious as to why there's so much impervious surface there. It seems like a nice opportunity if it is going to be hosting activities and farmers market potentially, or other activities. Wouldn't it be nice if there were some overstory trees or something to give it a real boulevard feel? This is not a requirement, this is my suggestion only. When I saw that, I thought, oh, it'd be really nice, but where's all the landscaping? So that's all I have, thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. Just as a clarification, so when the staff report says additional room on the west, they are not talking about the lineal park land, because that is owned by the city.
Mr. Chair.
And I think when she says west side, I think she's probably referring to the southwest corner of the lot.
Mr. Chair, that southwest corner it's not proposed for construction at this time, but it does kind of have some blocked out areas for a potential future addition. So I believe what she's talking about is this west area right here, and then there's the additional lineal park.
Okay, seeing that now though, when I look at this site plan, I see that parking and everything going right up to the
property line?
Right up to the property line. So what I'm saying is, I don't see that green space, because that's not a fair representation of the parcel in and of itself.
Well, it doesn't have the
You
property
don't
line.
have, you don't have the north side. There is no official property line delineation on that. So when she says the west side, I've interpreted to mean the southwest corner, because as I look at all this, there is no land on the west side.
Well, you can see, if you look on Sunday's preliminary plat, you can see the setback line dashed in. The first block of parking that's listed up there, you can see it, meets it. And assuming that it's a 90-degree angle, which it probably is, it probably will fit, but it's all going to come off that that ring road. Again, we're not designing the parking, but if
Yeah.
she thinks that that's where that's probably it.
So you're talking right here. You're talking this strip right here.
Yeah, those are bump outs.
Yeah, okay. All right, my bad. Okay. Commissioner Brummond, would you like to go next?
Sure. I appreciate that you mentioned something about the light shedding. One of the things I really appreciate about living where we live is that you can still see the stars at night. And not everybody looks up, but it would be great if just incorporated into the design, and I know there's probably going to be lights in the parking lot and lights on the building, but if we could just keep a mind to make sure those lights are shedding down rather than out, and really, especially with how bright LED lights are. And I know that sounds nitpicky, but it really would contain some of that light shed and the light pollution to allow the residents, and then also just to minimize the glow of the city at night. So I appreciated that. And the other thing, this is maybe both, it's more a note as towards the future and not to the future, and also for something for the council to consider, is I read through the kind of the 2040 comprehensive plan, and then also taking a look at this, and I think that there's a lot of opportunities to, since we're just developing, to really keep a mind to sustainability, and that wasn't something that was really addressed very much in the comprehensive plan. And so things like, I know the stormwater right now is all kind of going into a pond, and then there was some discussion about irrigation for the beautiful landscaping that will hopefully be here. You know, are there simple, I know that this is going to be like a cost share thing as we begin to develop the boulevards and the streets, but are there simple things that we could do that would actually reuse some of that stormwater to irrigate the property itself? It benefits because then the stormwater gets filtered, so there's tons of benefits, and there can be easy things and there can be complicated things, so I would just be, that would be something I would love to see is some thought about what could fit into the budget for this plan. I also really appreciate the fact that, especially if we're adding additional parking kind of along this outlot for the linear park, what could we do to, I would just also second that thought, that might be something that we would want to prioritize. The other note that I had is that, and this is maybe just by way of clarification, is that I understand that the independent living is counted as residential, but it looks so starkly different than kind of the recommendations for residential homes in this area. So I was thinking about just the synergy of look over time. Like, I noted that some of the proposals for homes had more of like a farmhouse look, and this feels just really more commercial, like building, and I don't know if that's just because of its location in the town center, but I was just wondering about the harmony of design there. It had a lot of just hard edges, it felt like. Anyway. And I would also like to see some trees. One of the things, this is maybe really out there, but I'm new, so I get to do that this week, is that if we were looking for a trade-off for trees, I noted that I saw that there was some gardening space and for the residents who live there to just utilize that. And I would be willing to say, like, hey, if there's more space given to allowing those residents to maintain gardening, whether it's vegetable gardening or floral gardening, whatever, that would maybe be something that, I love my trees and I'd love to see those, but that's also something that I'd be willing to bargain with.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Lanterman?
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions for staff, as usual. I see that this report was created by Landform and not you, Natalie, so I just want to recognize that this was created by the city's vendor. Under context, number 3, the first paragraph reads, "The city's discretion in approving a site plan is limited to whether or not the plan meets the standards outlined in the zoning ordinance. If it meets these standards, the city must approve the site plan. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Landman, that is correct, yes.
Okay. And then if you go to the last page of the report, under the landform, it's called conclusion, so I assume this is the conclusion of landform. It reads, staff has reviewed the plans with the applicable standards outlined in the comprehensive zoning plan and zoning ordinance and finds that the standards for a site plan, CUP, and preliminary plat have been met. Did I read that right?
That is correct, Mr. Commissioner, or Commissioner Landman.
Okay, so if that conclusion is true, then we must vote to approve, correct?
Commissioner Landman, that is true unless you have findings of fact that would contradict our findings, yes.
Okay, I'm getting there. So, but again, I don't believe that that conclusion is true. Could you pull up the slide with the trees and shrubs with the numbers?
And just while Natalie's doing that, Chair and Commissioner Landman, just to add to that, you know, the commission could also find that additional conditions are needed in order to meet those statements as well. So there's certainly a way to attach conditions.
And I should clarify that we believe that the standards have been met as long as the applicant meets the certain conditions that we've outlined for approval, which includes the landscaping and parking standards. I'm trying to find the landscaping.
Yep, keep going.
There we go.
Okay, so if I read this correctly, the ordinance requires 259 trees and 535 shrubs. And it sounds like we're actually looking at 72 trees and 216 shrubs. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct, Commissioner Landman. And then as a condition of approval, we say that the plans need to be revised to show the 259 trees and 535 shrubs.
Okay, but as written, then, the conclusion here is not correct.
No, so under item 8K2,
Under
it's a condition
8
of approval, so it's on page 3 of 7 of the second resolution.
3, okay, hold on.
Second resolution.
Page 8?
Sorry, it's page
3 of 7.
3 of 7, it's condition 8K2. A minimum of 259 overstory trees or equivalent and 535 shrubs shall be provided. So, as Natalie stated, so as it's written, all of these are conditions that must be met, and if all the conditions are met, then it meets the standards.
Okay.
May I?
One of these 18 conditions would be part of the approval to come in compliance.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But may I interject there? The part that got me on that one particular thing, it says or equivalent. And in the staff report, it says that 3 understory equal 1 overstory tree. So are we, by saying that, giving the developer the option to replace any number of the 259 required with 3 shrubs or 3 understory trees?
I would say they're required to meet code. Now, that being said, staff works with the applicant to design something that makes the most sense for the district. So it'd be something our team would work with their team.
So, but I think to the point that maybe, I know that Commissioner Wu brought up, it would sound like, Commissioner Wu, you would like to see 259 overstory trees.
Well, I don't know that I can, what I can say is that I think the calculation should be as written, because the discussion was looking at it all as residential versus as some residential and some commercial. If it's in the ordinance that there is an equivalency of shrubs to overstory trees, I'm fine with that. Personally, I'd like to see trees, but I feel that if that's what's written in the ordinance, then we would follow what the ordinance writes in terms of the calculation, and if there's equivalent, then there's an equivalence. But I think with the scale of this building, being 3-story, four-story, I think, why not have some overstory trees? You probably want those too.
Well, specifically in the staff report on page 6, under landscaping, it says 3 understory trees can be used to satisfy 1 overstory tree requirement, which would mean 72 trees are provided where 259 are required.
Okay, where is that?
It's right here. So the way the resolution is written, it's not, our recommendation to the city council is not that the applicant should be tied to the 259 trees per the calculation. It says, or the equivalent. And the way the staff has written this, that would mean that they would only be required to do 72 trees. Overstory trees. Am I reading that wrong?
No, Mr. Chair, we're not saying that they can only provide 72 trees. We're saying the current plans submitted have equivalent of 72 trees. We're saying that we want to see the equivalent of 259 trees and 535 shrubs.
Okay, you're going to have to, listen, I don't think it could be any clearer, which would mean 72 trees are provided where 259 are required.
Correct.
And that's following right in.
72 trees are currently provided on the plans. The equivalent of 72 trees are currently provided on the plans, where 259 are required.
Okay, all right, I see, okay. Okay, well, we can discuss how we want to maybe adjust that particular one or not, but.
Yeah, I think
I just want to bring it up.
clear.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be clear. It's,
My point was just the calculation aspect of categorizing the housing type.
And I agree with you.
Yeah, I didn't really
Yeah.
get into what that actually meant for what the applicant would be planting, but we can talk about that. Again, the scale of the building, I think they need some taller trees, but,
Yep.
And Mr. Chair, members, that's something that the commission could think about, striking the or equivalent and make that a requirement.
Sure.
Well, listen, as long as we're on the topic, if we say, well, an applicant can substitute 3 understory trees for 1 overstory tree, but we all know what 1 overstory tree is. It's a ball and burlap, 6-foot, skinny little thing that gets, why don't we give credit then, in a case like this, where somebody has such a large number of trees that they have to provide, why don't we say, well, if you get a tree spaded in of a particular variety, that'll take care of 2 of your trees. Why don't we give them credit for encouraging them to provide a bigger tree
higher quality
right at
tree.
right at the beginning?
Yeah.
And so that's a debate, that's a topic for another day. But it was on my list of questions, and thanks for bringing that up. Commissioner Lanterman, you still have the floor.
no, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, you guys all ready for all my questions? I actually wrote all these down. On a deal, I don't normally do this. Is the applicant here?
Yes, applicant's there.
Along
Okay.
the wall there.
Sir, so I was curious. You talk about new urbanism, and I think to maybe partially answer to the best I can Commissioner Brummond's question about the design of the building. So the idea here is that new urbanism, because of its proximity to the downtown future core and the design elements that we have set up, the architecture elements for that, I think that's why that building looks like the way it does. Would that be a fair statement? Okay. But you talk about new urbanism and describe it as a place to welcome the public in to grab a cup of coffee, take a class, swim in the indoor pool, attend an outdoor concert, shop at a farmer's market, and work out in the fitness center. Is this a new concept for your product? And if you wouldn't mind, please just stating your name.
Yes, good evening. Calvin Chongowski, I'm the CFO on behalf of the applicant.
This is not a new concept necessarily to St. Therese. We have all these amenities at our site. This particular development really lends itself, being that it's in the town center and the walkability. So the term new urbanism really is augmented by the proximity of our site to the downtown core.
Okay. And the reason I kind of brought it up, I mean, I think it's a great concept, but you've also got retail space
We would.
in there. And that would be something unrelated to you or your entity? It would be to third parties at market rates, or what are we looking, I mean, somebody gonna put a Taco Bell in, or I understand coffee, gift shop, things like that, but is it basically gonna be something that'll have vacancy and whatnot on and off throughout the lifetime, where tenants come and go, offering different products and services?
Sure, it's a good question. We would not plan to, and we haven't been in negotiations or discussions. We currently have very similar retail spaces like gift shops, cafes, bistros that we own and operate. It is something that we would consider though, given the number of the bays or the stalls that we have here, but we are not currently in discussions and we don't have intentions currently not to operate those spaces.
Mhm. Okay. And all of this is leading to, I guess, one concern I've had about the whole thing. So we got the amphitheater, your farmer's market, I could see that drawing a lot of people. Now, whether they get there by foot or by bicycle, probably most people around here travel by car. And the one thing that's kind of got me all wrapped up here is that you've got invitations for public use, but there's no provision for parking for this. I mean, there's not enough parking as it's been displayed, just as required for the number of residents that are going to be here. But I'm concerned about where are people that want to come to the farmer's market or a concert at the amphitheater. Where I mean, the staff report doesn't say anything about where these people are going to park. We have no provisions for it. I don't know, if you have an answer, please, but
Yes, yeah, I'd
Okay.
love to. We do invite and encourage the community to come and engage, and vice versa for our residents to engage with the area south of our development. Natalie, if we could pull up maybe the site plan, I could speak to some of those. So the parking requirement specific to our site really has to do and speak to the use of the residents that we have between housing and skilled area and our visitors. It does not account for any of the parking that would be on 79th Place or any of the parking that is provided for on City Center Drive. So there is parallel parking along City Center Drive that would extend all the way north. So any visitors parking for special events could be accommodated through those parking areas. There's also, this is to be determined, but the future developments to the south may be within walkable distance from residential areas. So we would really accommodate and allow those individuals that live in those spaces to visit the site, on foot, through pedestrian traffic. The other areas that the linear parkway, could also allow for bikes, travel, pedestrian travel as well. So that's where we would be accommodating all of that traffic.
Just to refresh, so City Center Drive, that is going to be built as part of this right away, right? It's not something to come in the future. And is City Center Drive going to have parking on it?
Correct.
Okay. I apologize because I didn't see any of that. Or either that or I just flat out missed it, but I could see where that would accommodate some of that overflow, but
We
yeah.
didn't show it on the plan, so I apologize for that.
No, that's quite all right. Okay, and I see you've got, you've got future expansion in the southwest quadrant. Do you have any idea what those would look like? Because one of my questions or comments or recommendations, so we've kept everything on the County Road 116 side as a two-story, but most of your independent living is 3 or 4 stories. Is it going to be feasible for you to expand into, independent living with a 2-story building? Or do you see that being requiring 4-story?
Yeah, this area right here, just to call out for future phase 2, just to confirm, this would marry up with the same elevation of this 3-story independent living. It would be 3-story, and then on this side, it'd be 4-story with underground parking. So there's grade change in elevation. But the plan would be to align the elevation of those 2 buildings. So it'd be three stories with grade level parking.
Okay. Now, you've made the idea that you're going to allow the public to use some of the facilities. Are there fees for the pool or the gym or classes at all, or?
Yes, we do have a membership, monthly membership for those spaces. We have those at our other campuses.
Okay, and see, again, if that was something that we had seen in the report, it just says that it's just that, hey, people can come in and use it. Now, I would maybe never expect that many people to go use it, but you are now going to become the only health club in all of Corcoran. So, if all of a sudden you get 500 members and you got 70 of them using those facilities on a daily basis, but under any other circumstances for a health club, we would have a minimum number of required parking spots. Staff, is there any, is giving what is required at 206 spots or something, is that factoring in what might be utilized for the facilities from the general public?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that those spots are what we think that is needed for this facility based on our calculations. My understanding is that some of these residents, unfortunately, are not necessarily driving, so they don't need necessarily as much parking as you would need in a typical apartment complex. So, yes, we believe if the applicant revises the plan to include 41 more stalls, we will have parking sufficient, including the on-street parking on City Center Drive.
I will just add on to that, just having the number obviously doesn't sometimes change a problem. You can have 300 extra stalls on the wrong side of the property that aren't going to be very helpful. So I think we really work with the applicant to, this is their facility, working with their architect and their plan folks of seeing how their use should be parked, and those are conversations that have been going back and forth. I tend to agree with you on the surface, kind of questioning those things.
Well, I mean, they come with a plan, they're short of what was required, so to say that the applicant has come to the commission with a plan that's going to incorporate and considers the amount of volume that could be used by the public for the facilities, I think is, I don't know I don't know how that happens.
Mr. Chair, I would keep in mind that this isn't a new concept for St. Therese Communities. As they've said, they do have experience operating similar facilities elsewhere, so I don't think they would come in proposing parking that isn't going to accommodate based on their experience elsewhere. But city does believe additional parking spaces are needed, yes.
Okay. One last question that I have. So the newly approved senior care facility that was granted just down County Road 10 is a senior co-op. Now, I didn't know, it's basically condominium ownership in some form. I didn't see anything about that, nor do I think it really is relevant here, but I was just curious. Are your facilities owned by residents, or are they leased on a month-to-month or year-to-year basis? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, we would, the housing portion would be leased on a month-to-month basis, similar to all of our residency contracts that we have across St. Therese. The healthcare spaces are more on a daily basis, or, what we call per diem basis. It's more of a inpatient stay for short-term transitional care, and others are what we call long-term care, and it's all healthcare.
Okay, great. I think that's all I had. For you, anyway.
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about, I guess it was just something, more out of curiosity. The amphitheater, the example given in the report shows an elevation, stadium seating style. Is that what we're expecting here in this case too?
Mr. Chair, the rendering provided is what we are expecting, but we are asking for additional details to be provided for the amphitheater, yes.
Okay. So on page 6 of the staff report, we talk about signage, and I'm a little confused about the requirement for the town center. So the applicant has no signage for their particular development, but when we talk about signage for 79th and for town center on 116, are we talking about signage dedicated to the whole downtown district? Or are we talking about signage relative to their property?
Mr. Chair, so that is specifically focused on gateway signage for the district. I think the first part of the signage paragraph is talking about signage dedicated to St. Teresa. There is no plan submitted for that, and they'll have to go through our permitting process. They're not asking for any variation from our sign ordinance standards at this time anyway. And then as far as the gateway signage, that really is going to be a policy issue for city council. Ultimately, those gateway signs will be on our property, so it's more of a condition that we're gonna need to work with them.
Can I just simply ask, why are we requiring their input? I mean, I would value anybody's input, but if this is a city issue for a city downtown, what resources can we legitimately ask the applicant to provide as far as helping to design that if it doesn't have their name on it and it's not suited for their property in particular? What am I missing?
So, Mr. Chair, basically, we are going into a partnership with them for the street design aspect of City Center Drive and 79th Place, and this is part of the street design.
Okay, so they'll help design it and share in the cost of that design, but they don't have a cost component in getting it ultimately built, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the way, what we're talking about here is really ultimately we have a signage section, and it's just really highlighting that that's outside of the scope of this project. The overall signage plan for the downtown area will be done by the city. So it's just kind of talking about signage of this whole area in general.
Okay.
So you're correct, it's not part of the review for this specific application.
Okay, so on that design, so we talk about trees. So am I to assume that the trees are right alongside the road? Those were added by the applicant, but they're not responsible for putting those trees in there. That's a responsibility of the city.
Yeah, correct, that is not a final design, the trees along the streetscape, no.
Okay, so may I make a suggestion? Again, the applicant, according to the possible recommendation from this commission, is to have 259 trees, where they haven't put 259 in their landscape plan. Could we give them credit for part of their 259 trees to put those trees along their property line on those two roads? I mean, why are we not seeking that as a way to not only minimize the cost to the city, but as a contribution from the applicant to their requirement?
Mr. Chair, currently, I think it's more about to do, we haven't designed it as a city, what we want to go in there, and I don't know if you have any further
Yeah, I mean, I
detail on
think we probably could find a mechanism to do so. I don't know why I'd want to, though. I think we'd want to have as much vegetation in this area. To Commissioner Wu's point, it's a big building and having the more vegetation possible. And maybe it's less on their site along this corridor, knowing that the city's gonna have a pretty significant, landscaping edge, and it's invested otherwhere on the property. I think it's something to consider, and I don't think I'd want to personally reduce what they'd want to do on their property. Maybe it's putting it someplace else.
Well, again, Brad, they came with a plan that doesn't come anywhere near 259 trees. So I'm just saying, if we're going to require them to put 259 trees, maybe we say, hey, listen, we'll give you, we'll take in a future